Hi, I'm back. Sorry about that. Let me just wait for you all to come in. Having a few technical issues in lockdown. Just wait for Margo Roe to come back and join. Hopefully you can all see. But I'm very excited to speak to Margo Roe this morning. Hi, hello. Thank you for coming back to me. Can you hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up or a wave if you can hear okay. Hi, Diana. Just give me a thumbs up or a wave if you can hear me okay, because I've been having a few sound issues this morning. Can you hear? Yes? No? Yes, excellent. Right, I'm just waiting for Margo to join and then we can bring her back into the conversation. So Margo Roe, she used to work in theatre. She was part of the Edinburgh Fringe, I think back in 2014. And did theatre work, and her background's in dance and choreography and theatre, and then she decided to move into film. And she's created some excellent films. If you haven't checked them out already, go take a look. Searching for Cowardice. There we go. There's Margo. Hello, let me bring you into the conversation. There we go. Fun new technical things you get to try whilst you're in lockdown. I'm just waiting for her to accept. So there's name.
Hello.
Hello,
Hey, finally. That was
Nice.
complicated.
I know, I'm sorry. I was trying a new online thing, a different way of using Instagram because I was having phone issues and I
Yeah.
couldn't invite you. So
No.
now we're on the phone.
Yes. Yeah.
Good morning. So this is Margo Roe.
Hello.
Hello. I was just telling them a little bit about you. Come from a choreographer, dancing background.
Mhm.
Used to work in theatre. I've moved into film.
Mhm.
Um, and you're a choreographer, writer, and director of your own
Yes.
films.
Yeah.
The two which I've put out for people to view, which we can watch at the moment, is Name and Searching for Cowardice.
Yes.
That use dance in a really interesting way and quite gritty texts, I think.
Mm.
Um, so just did you want to give us a little bit of an introduction? How are you today? And tell us a little bit about you and your career and
Yeah. I'm all right. I think I'm good today. So I've come from a dance theatre background, and then when I finished university, I decided that I wanted to get into film. So I've sort of been trying to figure out. I knew nothing about film when I went into it, so I sort of tried to figure out what film was, how to practically do it and create it. And then I've worked in the film industry for a while, as well as teaching at two dance schools, one musical theatre school, one dance school. And then I've just been creating my own work over the last sort of 3 years or so.
And what a privilege as well to
Oh gosh, yeah.
be, yeah, because a lot of especially when it comes to making your own films or writing your own films,
Mm.
it seems that a lot of writers then kind of have to relinquish their baby and let go of it a lot. Whereas because you're still directing, you finding you still get quite a bit of artistic control.
Yeah, I think because I'm still at the early stages of creating work. There's a lot of artist and director led funding programs. So I think I've had to write out of necessity because with a lot of the film applications, you have to provide a script. So if I had an idea, I had to write a script for it. So that's sort of where the writings come from because I've sort of steered away from writing because I'm dyslexic, and then you sort of have to sit down and do it, and you're like, oh, okay, this isn't that bad, even though everyone thinks their scripts are really bad. And then you sort of give it out to the world, and then people come back and like, okay, yeah, we can do this, we can work with this. So I think writings come from the necessity of I've got an idea, this is how I want to do it, and having to do that with funding bodies.
Interesting. And in terms of funding bodies, if you're submitting it with a script, is the idea that they produce that exact script, or are they using it as a basis for talent to work with you?
I think it depends. So my experience is with I did the Random Acts program, which that's more of an open brief because that's for artists from different disciplines, mainly from different disciplines that want to sort of create a film. So Name was done through the Random Acts program, and for that I sort of the application process was a block of ideas, and then it was a very brief script. There was no dialogue in it. It was a sort of just a breakdown of the structure. And that was a young creatives process, so that was a very lenient back and forth, develop it with them. Same for the BBC Nude Creators, which Certain was made under. I provided a script with that, with a detailed sort of lookbook on the movement and style. So those sort of went hand in hand. And then from there, I worked with Grant, who's the exec at Rural Media, who we worked with, and we sort of had a few weeks on developing the script and changing things around. That was after they'd given us the funding. And then for my BFI short, that was a longer process, because it's mainly for narrative films. They do other things as well, but that was a purely narrative piece called Pop, and we had to provide a script, which then we were put in touch with script developers, and we could develop it to as far as we went. But we had quite a lot of freedom with them to basically figure out what you want to do, because they're supporting young directors and young writers.
Right. That's good. So you've been very lucky so far, in the sense that you've been able to have artistic control over a lot of what you've done.
I think so. I think because there's sort of new up and coming pots of funding, I imagine if I was working brought on solely as sort of like a director, I think the directors can have as much influence as you want, but then as a writer, like you said, you either have to hand it over, or then you can go through and sort of help throughout it. But I've not got to that stage yet, which I'm quite happy about. This is what I want to do.
Hello to people who have just joined. So this is Margo Roe, writer, director, choreographer, making films, and we're going to do about a 20-minute interview on Instagram Live, and then we're moving on to Zoom to do a free workshop, free skills share workshop, to look a bit more deeply into how to choreograph for film, sorry. And this is all happening thanks to funding that we got from Arts Council England, the emergency COVID-19 funding to help support artists during this weird time. So there's a series of 12 that we'll be doing, and this is Margot's kicking it off for us. Very exciting. So tell me a bit more about your journey, your early career. Did you say you did a qualification and started in film, and started in theatre, and what kind of drove you into film?
So I started off dancing at there's a guy called Graham Fletcher that used to go around primary schools. This is going way back. So I didn't really know what I was going to do, and I just sort of fell into things, and he sort of picked up that I could move, and then took us on to his arts and education programme, and then he sent me to audition for the Birmingham Royal Ballet, and I sort of got in there, just had no idea. I was just a bit oblivious, basically. I had no idea what that was, and then stayed there for 5 years, and then it got to sort of uni time, and I wasn't really fussed for going, but I applied, got into Lincoln Uni to do dance and drama, and then it all just happened, and I really enjoyed it. Figured out that I was directing throughout all my work, so I then took a piece to the Edinburgh Fringe. I co-directed that with Faye McDowell, and then after the gruel of a month performing at the Fringe, I sort of went, I really enjoy directing movement and that, but theatre and live art isn't how I want to present it. So I then finished uni, came back home, and just started figuring out how film works. So I joined a film club in Leicester. I don't think it runs anymore. It was called 7-5, and that was sort of like a enthusiast filmmakers, like local people making films. And I sort of met some people, and then from there I sort of fitted into the assistant directing department. So I've been assistant directing for short films, as well as I've done a feature film, and then I've worked as a runner on bigger things. Like I've just done a few days on Everyone's Talking About Jamie, which is the new musical film that's going to be put out there, and I was able to work, my first work experience was on The Virtues, which was great. So I've sort of been able to see how films work on a technical level, and then from there I've been looking for funds to then create my own work.
And how's sorry.
No, you're right.
I don't have the virus. I just got a cough.
It's all right. We're away from each other anyway.
Yeah, we're socially distant.
Yeah.
And how's that funding search working out for you?
Good. I think so. Obviously, the Random Acts program that we first got, I didn't expect to get it. It was just one of those things, and then the New Creatives has sort of taken over that slightly. I think anyway, because it's the same company that are doing it, but they're now doing the BBC New Creatives, which is for, again, new creatives that want to make films. And then now the BFI, I think it's 2 years ago or more, they made their short film fund regional. So basically a pot of money with our exec, Alexander Jackson, came to the Midlands. And that meant that we had access to make short films, because funding for short films and films in general, it's hard to get. And I've self-funded a short film, and films are just so expensive. You can only do it a couple of times and ask so many favours. So I think I've sort of got to a point now where I've done the obvious options, and it's just digging deeper to find those other options of film funding.
Yeah, because the problem with film, I guess, is there's so many people involved. You can't just write it and get it out there yourself. You need to rely on a lot of other teams.
Yeah, definitely.
And so you focused a lot on choreographing for film. What do you think dance adds to and film, and what are the challenges you face with having this as a stylistic choice?
Yeah, I think it depends. I was thinking about this question because I don't know what it adds. I think it's a genre. And I think if you see it as a genre, then there are so many different genres out there. I think for me, one of the main things I know is that I love dance, and for me, you can communicate so much through it. And I think it's almost like it's universal in a way. So it gets rid of the barrier of language if you don't understand different languages. But I think because I shot Pop, which is our narrative, and Searching for Cowardice basically within the same month, and I found it a lot easier to direct the movement than I did to direct the straight narrative. And I don't know if that's just because I connect more with language of movement or what, but I think in terms of bringing it to the screen, I just think it's different. I think you can portray a lot more. I think music videos are massive at the minute, and I've just been watching. My partner showed me Uma Doherty collaborated with Jamie XX for his new music video, and that's just her traveling through this space at night, performing, moving, and she doesn't say anything. And obviously you've got the music track on top, but that looks like it could come straight out of the drama and just be slotted in. And I think there's definitely a market and a need for it. And there's other artists like the Ballet Boys did Young Men as their theatre performance, and they've now made it into a feature, which is, I mean, it looks amazing because I think they shot it in France and it's a war film, and that's translated really nicely. And then Georgia Paris has just done her BFI feature film, Marry, which is about a choreographer who's going through a situation. I think one of her, this is really bad, I can't remember, but one of her relatives has passed, and then we're basically fusing into her choreography world as well as her real world. And so I think movement on screen is pushing to be more in the mainstream. So I think, I don't know, take that opportunity and roll with it, I think.
Next big thing.
Yeah, well, I hope. One can only hope.
And I'd love to know a little bit more about your individual artistic process. So what's your starting point, and in terms of building a script and choreography?
Yeah, so I think so my aim is, I love straight narrative, I love like immersive contemporary live art, and I think I want to figure out a way in which I can fuse them together so people that aren't familiar with movement can get it and engage with it, and then people who are really into the movement on screen can also work with a really quite fundamental strong narrative. So I think For me, it's, do I have a movement idea first? What do I see first? Movement, or do I see a story? And if I see, so for searching, it came out of the necessity of, I had this script idea. So I wrote a straight script, and then from that, I collaborated with the choreographer Charlotte Davies, and we went into the studio, we had the script, and then we started choreographing from the script and writing on the script how it was going to work. I knew already that we had a car scene that I wanted a particular movement to, and we had a track that we were working to. The others, we didn't do it to a track. We just basically choreographed. I like to choreograph stuff that would work without music, and then compose after for a lot of things. Name was completely done by that. Name wasn't done to any music. We basically just created the movement without a track. We shot it without a track, and then we put a score to it afterwards. And so it depends, really. It depends if you've got an idea for, if movement comes first, then I'll go into a studio and I'll devise something, then write a script. If I've got a strong narrative with dialogue, mainly, I will write the script and then put the movement to it. I think the development process from this is now figuring out a script in which I can write choreography into that will then relay to whoever reads it. That's the next process, I think.
That sounds like a huge challenge.
Yes, I think it's a lifelong thing, isn't it? It's one of them things.
Yeah, same for writing a film script. I guess you have to relinquish control, I guess, because someone's bound to put their own spin on what you intended.
It depends as well what funding bodies you go into. So I think for any, because it gets to the point where you've got your film council who are funding films, and you've got your arts council who is funding dance and movement. Mainly it's audience interactive. So I'm in the middle at the moment where I am doing movement, and I'm doing movement on screen, which movement falls under like the arts council, and then film is obviously under the film council. So depending on who I'm pitching to will depend on how I approach. So if you go into the film council, you need to then speak their language, give them a script, and then introduce the section that they might not be as familiar with, which is dance. Whereas if you go to the other side, you can talk to them about practitioners, you can talk to them about the movement that you want to do and the style, and then you go in with, okay, and then this is how we're going to shoot it, sort of thing. So you have to sort of weigh up where you're going to go and how you think you're going to get the funding for the project and where's best to go.
Yeah, so you really have to understand the market and where you're going to, how you're going to make it happen before
I think so. And I think the best way to do that is to get a producer, because my producer Lucy, basically, she does the majority of that for me, and then goes, oh, I think I found this fund, okay, this project would be good for it. Read of what we've got to do, and then figure out how you're going to present it. So
do the art first, and then the funding idea second, rather than just responding to call up.
Yeah, I think you'll always have little ideas. I've got ideas. She sent over something the other day of this. There's an application, a short film application. She was like, have you got any ideas for this? So sometimes it'll come in, and then you'll be like, oh, there's this idea I've had ages ago. I've not really done anything with it. Okay, maybe we can tailor it to this. Which you shouldn't tailor to a production, to a fund. But I think when you've got so many little ideas, maybe sometimes a fund will come along and you'll go, oh gosh, yeah, that will actually work. And then you tailor it to that.
Yeah. So it's okay to take inspiration.
Yes.
And I'd love to know what you feel the most important lesson you've learned throughout your career that's had a positive impact on your career.
I think not everything's been done, basically, I think, is the lesson you've learned. I think when you come out of uni and you go, I've got all these amazing ideas and I'm going to do all this. You've got great ideas, but everything's already been done. So that should take the pressure off you to create something that's amazing and new. So if you think that everything's been done, then you've just got to present it in your way and do it. And you know it'll already be great and fine because it's already been done. So you need to then take it to another level and do it how you're going to do it. Whereas I think the pressure of creating something that's new, innovative, no one's seen it before, it's too much pressure, if that makes sense. So I had that, I kept having ideas, and then my friends would be like, oh, it's just like this, and it's just like this, and I'd be like, oh, it's already been done, it's already done this. But I think that was one of the biggest lessons I've learned, and that just means that if I have an idea, I'll roll with it rather than researching it, figuring out that someone's already done something pretty similar, and they're going, oh no, I'm not going to do it. So
Yeah,
you just keep going.
Stuck in a skeptical loop of,
Yes.
you could do that with any story, it's already been told in a form.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also, coming from theatre to film, I think film has this sort of idea of being this glossy, untouchable thing. And I think once you get onto a big film set, it's just like small film sets. There's no difference except for there's more people and more budget.
Okay.
And I think once you've figured that out, then you realise, yes, you've got a lot to learn and you're constantly learning about things, but there's no secrets. Because I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome, especially with directors and writers. I think that's probably why I found it harder on pop to direct, because you sort of go into that world as a theatre creator and you're like, there's something I'm missing, that everyone knows more than me, which they should, because you shouldn't be the most intelligent person on set else. You want to make sure everyone else is up there, so then your work's going to be great. But I think when I was shooting Searching, I knew dance, I'd studied dance, I knew what I was making, and I knew that most of the filmmakers around me didn't understand the language. So I had to sort of rely on myself and Charlotte, the choreographer, to really go in on that, like, no, this is what we're doing because this is why it works. Whereas I think when you're going into a narrative point, even though I've directed and studied drama, you're still like, oh, everyone else knows a lot more than I do. So it sort of makes you question yourself more. So it's just getting over that barrier, I think.
Don't have imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So just to recap, so this is Margo Roe, choreographer, writer, director. It's done Searching for Cowardice, a name, and is it Pop coming up with
yes.
BSI?
It's been caught in post-production during COVID, so we're waiting for that to happen.
Okay, interesting. So we're going to move to the workshop soon. I'm going to share in a second. I'm going to share the workshop details for Zoom in the comments. It's free to join. It's just you just need to type in the meeting ID and password that I'll share in a minute. Half-hour workshop from Margo about choreographing for film. So whilst I put in these meeting details, I wondered if you could share your wisdom about what you think the current challenges are for people working in the film industry given a COVID climate. And do you have any tips or advice for professionals who want to get into that and what the new landscape looks like?
Yeah. I think in terms of COVID, I think if you're creative, then start writing down as many things as possible. This is your development time. I know a lot of things are taking on development, so they're looking to develop projects so when everything can go back, they can then go on and shoot things. So I'd say get down as much as possible. And this is the only time, being from the Midlands, there's this whole thing about outside the M25, film doesn't exist, which is ridiculous. But I think now is the time where it doesn't matter where you are, you can meet people. So chat with people, have Zoom calls with people. It's not a case of having to go to Manchester or having to go to London to meet people anymore. That's been taken away. So if there's someone you want to talk to or someone you want to meet or a crew member you want to meet, get them on Zoom and speak to them, because this is your only opportunity before we all figure out that we can't do that anymore, which would be weird. But yeah. And then advice, I don't think I've got advice for professionals because they're probably just doing what I'm doing. But I think for new young artists, I'd say just make things. No one's first work is amazing, so don't worry about that. Just make things, get a phone, make something, collaborate with your friends, and then network with people. And then look for young artist funds. There's a lot of like 18 to 25 opportunities out there which you could apply for, like workshops and film funds. So have a look at those and then start applying for them and get used to the language of applying.
That's a really good tip. I think you can often access creative advice, but it's difficult to get professional advice about how to break into the career and things.
Yeah.
Okay, and do you want to tell us a little bit about the workshop you're going to do on Zoom in a few minutes?
Yeah, so the workshop is movement on film. So it's basically a bit of a breakdown of the process that I do. Especially it's sort of related to searching and how we created it, how to generate ideas and how to start movement, and looking again at funding bodies and how to approach them and what to what to look at when creating movement on film. Yeah.
Great, I'm really excited. So if you haven't already signed up, just go to Zoom, and I've put the meeting ID and the password in the comments. So come and join us. It's free to join, and it will be about half an hour workshop. So we'll see you over there, or drop us a DM on Insta Live if you can't figure out how to get into the workshop and stuff. Thank you very much, Margo.
It's all right, see you in a minute.
See you in a minute. Bye.
Bye.